Hi, today is March 21st. Actually, it's the spring equinox. I'm here on the bow of the Professor Multanowski with Peter Bland, who escorted me to Antarctica for the first time. And we are about to go approach Cape Horn. And I would like just to ask you a question to Peter. How it all started, Peter, with your story of your venturing to the North Pole, the South Pole, etc.
Well, Gabriella, I mean, life is an adventure, yeah? And it's all about choice. And when you see opportunities in life, you can choose to go into them or out of them, or to let them pass you by. And I guess my story is one of seeing various opportunities to participate in adventures and always choosing to go into them. And it started with me really growing up on a farm at the base of a mountain. I was always encouraged to go and climbing mountains and climbing hills, and I always did. Later in life, when I was at school, I was very active. I was the captain of outdoor activities at school, so I was very involved in camping and abseiling and tying knots and organising and leadership. Then when I left school, I began work delivering boats around the world, so it was a great way for me to see the world without much money, using other people's boats to sail the world's oceans. So that was a great way for me to introduce myself to adventure. And one of those voyages that I took on a boat was to the Antarctic, and that was my real introduction to Antarctica. And it was actually here, right here, in Cape Horn, in Argentina, Chile, South America, that I first really breathed my first breath of the Antarctic wind. And once I'd experienced it, I knew I was hooked. I wanted to come back again and again.
Okay, what did Antarctica give to you? What was special about it? And also I would like to know, what is adventure? What does it mean for you?
Yeah, good question. So what did Antarctica give me? Antarctica gave me the possibilities for a virginal territory, a territory that hadn't been touched, a scope for possibilities that wasn't already built upon, that wasn't already structured, that wasn't already prohibited. It allowed for possibilities, and I'm all about possibilities. And the second part of your question, which relates in my answer to the first, which is, what is adventure, and how did the Antarctica lead me into this world of adventure? We see the difference between an adventurer and a tourist is an adventurer walks the path less worn, the path less taken, the path less known. It implies a certain unknownness about it. And that's what Antarctica offered me, and that's initially what South America offered me. And that's probably why we've chosen this with Adventure Odyssey to be our first real port of call as a place to offer adventure journeys.
Okay, I definitely had an adventure with you, and what drew me to come to this part of the world, which is so particular, was possibly the wilderness. And to me, wilderness means nature, means the elements, it means being close to yourself,
yeah,
close to your core. How does it have a similar meaning for yourself?
Yeah, I think that saying by T.S. Eliot, I shall not cease from exploration. The end of all of my journeying shall be to arrive where I started and to know the place for the first time. You can travel as I have to the poles of the earth only to discover that the deepest journey of all is into your soul. Now when you unlock who you are, it allows you the possibility to go anywhere, always in the company of yourself and your guiding force. That's what adventure has taught me. The power of going into yourself and knowing yourself. Unto thine self be true. But what is the truth? Who are you? And what are you capable of doing?
Yeah, it's definitely been a trip into myself, definitely. And talking about a trip into yourself and surfacing and touching your fears and what is dear to you. For me, it was just so revealing, seeing the power of nature and having to cope with it. So Peter, we were talking about nature. What does nature mean to you?
Nature is wilderness. Nature is honest. Nature is open. nature has possibilities. It hasn't been manipulated, it hasn't been controlled, it hasn't been contrived. Nature is raw. And I guess why you ask me that is because I seek the nature in humanity. I seek the rawness of humanity to unlock what we had, but we sometimes forget because we confine it within these sort of normal civilized society boundaries.
Can I ask you, well, when did you remember it? When did you remember your true nature?
Well, it's all a voyage, isn't it? It's all a journey. When did it start? When does it end? I don't think it ever ends. When did it start? Look, I was into the outdoors. I was into nature as a child, growing up on a farm at the base of Mount Macedon in Victoria in Australia. I was always encouraged to explore the hills and the mountains beyond, riding my bike, riding horses, walking, trekking, camping. I was really into it. At school I was into outward bound sort of activities, and then after that, you know, I started delivering boats and sailing boats around the world. So I was into nature, and I recognised that nature can teach us a lot if we allow it to.
Okay, I agree with that. I know that nature also taught you a big lesson.
Yeah.
And it put you to a standstill for a while.
It shook me about, for sure. I had an encounter with a near-death experience. I've had a couple of them actually. One of which you're referring to was I was taking my avalanche in Antarctica 8 years ago. An expedition attempting a world first crossing of the Antarctic Peninsula. On the very last day of a very successful expedition, I stepped out of the tent and I was taking my avalanche.
So how did that contribute to what is now Peter Bland?
It contributed enormously. Look, it contributed enormously to who I am now. Many would say that I'm a better person for it. Certainly people in my family would say I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better person as a result of that adversity. Adversity often teaches a bit of humility, and probably I could do or could have done with a good shot of humility. It's unfortunate that it came in the case of an avalanche which threw me 50 metres into a crevasse where I lay for 3 days, but for the grace of God and the bravery of my friend, I would remain, or my body would remain. Nothing like that to wake you up to the reality of life, about what you really, really want to achieve. And what I really came out of that wanting to achieve was a message to others about possibilities, about inner possibilities, and about greatness beyond their own knowledge right now.
Okay, a question for you. Peter, do you remember anything of the time when you were unconscious?
No, I've got a thing called PTA, post-traumatic amnesia, which is blocked out 6 days of my life. I remember stepping out of the tent, and I don't actually even remember stepping out of the tent, to be honest. I remember making camp, and I've now been told, and there's been a documentary made and so forth that reminds me, but I stepped out of a tent. And then the next thing I remember is about 6 days later on, when 3 guys are holding me down and 2 guys are putting my hip back in, because my femur, my bone in my leg, was out posterior, out through my backside, and it stayed out there for 2 days, 6 days I should say. And these 2 guys were holding my leg to put it back in.
So what was your first thing that you remember when you, let's say, you come back to yourself? Is there a thing that you remember? It was the first big idea, project, feeling, or whatever that came back consciously?
Yeah. Loss and less. What I was conscious of, what I was really conscious of, was that I wasn't who I was. Yeah, and I wasn't particularly proud of who I'd become. So I started to really go into a space of unworthiness, that I was not worthy. I went to a place of lack. I went to a place of loss, of guilt and debt. And of course, the more I thought about loss and less and guilt and debt, then the more loss and less and guilt and debt that I got. And that took a while, and it took me to a place I don't want to go back again to, and I'm not proud about. And it was a long voyage for me to go from there to here, to literally leading change, to taking kindred spirits to the ends of the earth, to unlock in them their own greatness.
Okay, if there was one thing only that you could say to the rest of the world, all of us finds oneself at some time in life in a similar situation, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If there was just one thing that you would like to say to help your fellow human beings in a situation like that, what would that be?
Trust yourself enough to believe in yourself.
Okay. And in those situations, sometimes the first step, it really looks blurry. So if there was one thing that you would do as first step, now, of course, with the hindsight, what would that be?
Get in touch with you. So what did I say? I said trust yourself enough to believe in yourself. Okay, but who are you? Huh? The Bible said, and it's been said many times, the truth will set you free. Hamlet, Shakespeare, the truth will unto thine self be true. Okay, the truth will set you free, but what is the truth and who are you? If your question is to what are the first step you'd take, the first step I would take is get back to you by writing down your dreams and your aspirations as a child, okay, and as an adult now, and pick the commonality. Don't pick the thing. Don't pick, like in my case, being a barrister, being a lawyer. Pick the theme, and in my case it was advocacy. It was holding an audience, holding court, and having a message. You see, that was my theme. Yeah. My other theme, which if I look boom now and then, as a child I wanted to be a professional tennis player. Okay. The theme, if you look at that and now, is really, it was about adventure, it was about freedom, it was about travel, it was about journeying, and it was about being an advocate, and that's exactly what I am right now. On my terms, with my friends, with Nick, with you, with others, you know, writing the script for the perfect world, and you know what? You might just get it. If you allowed yourself to really take the actions by trusting yourself enough to believe in yourself.
Okay, I have a last question for you, and it's something that I've thought myself many times. How could I help others in similar situation? When you are really in a situation of a standstill, of being put on hold by many different happening in your life, whatever, sometimes you really feel, as you were saying earlier, lost, or you feel lost or whatever. Even if somebody might tell you, oh, it's all an illusion, but it's so real in that present time. So is there anything that you can think of that it could really help, really something practical, that it could help somebody who is at loss at the moment, and just to get that little step, or 1 millimeter maybe, but it takes you out of that being stuck. What would it be?
Pretty simple.
Can you think of anything?
Yeah, a 3-step process. A, do what I just said, which is spend the time with a pen and a paper. You get that for free. You can find it at a coffee shop, and just pen and paper and a napkin, and write down what are your dreams, what are your aspirations, boom. Step 2, identify somebody who's already done it, right? Just find somebody in your community, somebody your parents might know, somebody one of your friends might know. Identify who's already been there, right? And step 3, contact them and copy them.
Okay. And let's suppose, worst scenario, you really are in the fog. And you're struggling to find yourself. Is there anything that can help you in that stage? Which is the worst, actually. It's the first...
The fog, the greyness.
The biggest hurdle.
Yeah,
really.
the beigeness. And the beigeness is held together by comfort. And the trouble with comfort is it's not very comfortable, is it? It's
very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable, the land of comfort zones. And then it's doubly hard to leave comfort zone land because it's apparently comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And uncomfortably comfortable.
And all you are is anxious and frustrated, but not quite enough to chuck it and go. Yeah. Well, I'd encourage you to do as I said, 1, 2, 3. And if the third step is to find a mentor who's been where you were and who's got to where you want to go, and the model is to copy them, and they're taking you somewhere where it might be uncomfortable, be brave enough to go there. Just go with them. Like, I think you're a great example, Gabrielle. You're a great inspiration to others. You also have gone from the beigeness and the greyness on a journey which challenged you, challenged others, and confronted you and others with new realities, like a paradigm shift. And paradigm shifts can only happen by definition if a person is confronted through new situations. So my advice is to put yourself continually and constantly in new situation, which constantly teach you and challenge you.
And I think with this we come back to adventure, don't we?
Adventure's the theme of the whole thing. I mean,
Is it the shortcut?
the short answer to it all is, I mean, like I said, from stage 101, I'll tell you, I'm Peter Bland, and I'm an adventurer with a message. What's my message?
Be adventurous.
Be an adventurer.
Have fun yourself.
Be an adventurer and be prepared to take that path less taken to discover yourself. And then when you've discovered yourself, please introduce yourself to yourself and give yourself the respect and the honour to at least to acknowledge your wishes and your desires and take the actions that need to be taken to get what your heart is screaming out to receive.
Thank you, Peter.
My pleasure, Bella.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Can you have a look? Is there anyone there? Hello. Look.
The light is really bright.
Where? I can't. Are you there, Peter? Hello.
You come up very well.
Knock, knock, knock. Hello.
It's Peter Bland. Wearing a hat for humans, and I can't wear it
Okay, ciao.
because I'm a witch.
Ciao. 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 Bye-bye.